So, without further ado, I would love to introduce Allyson Darling. Equally lovely and ferocious in nature, Allyson Darling resides in San Francisco. She writes raw and embarrassing nonfiction essays about sex, relationships, and pantries, and sometimes about having sex in pantries. She studied creative writing in undergrad and currently writes for a tech company to pay the bills, goes on Tinder dates to pay for meals, and writes her heart out because she would shrivel if she didn't. Her work has been published on Writtalin, Thought Catalog, xoJane, and in ZAUM, ZAUM, and Red Light Lit. Cool. Please welcome Allyson.
So I'm going to read a creative nonfiction piece for you. I just have to say, I'll just tell you after, but I'll just read this first. Okay. It's called It Pays. Violet-colored feathers encircled my eyes. The elastic tied around my head pulled at my hair. A Mardi Gras mask wasn't exactly the item I had imagined wearing to protect my identity. I lied on my stomach with my feet splayed out on a pillow like a platter of appetizer escargot at a stuffy wedding. I forced myself to laugh with each tickle motion to my toes. Grasping, raspy noises sprung off the ceiling. The spiderless corners whispered in curiosity, "What are you doing?" They wanted to know. I wanted to know too, as I avoided looking at the framed photographs of his children on the mantle and the eye of the camera lens in the center of the living room. I had communicated with Larry through email. He was an architect with a foot fetish who was also partial to proper punctuation. The other foot enthusiasts I had spoken to resided in skimpy runoffs of the city and wanted me to grind my heels into their eye sockets after I had walked all day in dirty shoes. The dirtier the better, they said. And there is something about the appropriate use of a semicolon that really makes you trust a person for your foot fetish debut, you know? We agreed to meet at 6:30 on Wednesday. After I had swallowed 2 glasses of champagne at a bar, and after I had washed my feet in the sink of my work bathroom. I walked by a house with cherry blossoms that matched a pink gate. I walked by another with violet flowers that matched the door. And then the next one, a front yard with dead lilies, dying lilies. I was buzzed and scared, and my feet were sweating again. I arrived at the building, 0.7 miles later, and waited 3 minutes until a man, Larry I presumed, opened the door. He had a pot belly that lived inside his red polo shirt, a flat top, a soft voice, gentle even, like a goodbye from a therapist you've had for the past 3 years that helped you process the hardest death of your life. He gestured with thick hands, this way up this staircase, and again, past the labyrinth of flowers. And he walked behind me the whole way, holding doors open. His apartment seemed endless, with wood floors, low-hanging lights, and a wall of pure window that showcased the bridge. When I walked through the kitchen, I noticed 4 pairs of high heels sitting on the couch like eyeless accomplices. "Do you want anything to drink? Wine, vodka, beer, water?" Larry asked as he poured himself a glass of vodka. I did not. Larry suggested I put on a pair of tights. Which color? I could choose whichever ones I wanted, he said, but could I please go put them on in the bathroom? This was not about nakedness. This was not about sex, or sex in the way that I thought about sex. I chose a dusky gray pair. I locked the bathroom door. The contents of a bathroom can reveal much about an individual. There was an abundance of shampoo in the shower, but no conditioner, and a few booklets of crossword puzzles on a stand facing the toilet. They were all complete. I wondered how many bathroom breaks it took to complete a booklet of crossword puzzles. And then I noticed a prescription pill bottle, and I just knew that he was a serial killer that had stopped taking his medication, and my last breaths would be in this bathroom of completed crossword puzzles. I stood on my tighted tiptoes and read that the bottle actually contained amoxicillin. When I returned from the bathroom, the drapes that had showcased the bridge were closed. I told him that this was my first time foot modeling, as he referred to it, so could he please feel free to direct me. I meant it in a professional sort of way and not a sexually dominating one. I also announced it with what I thought were church girl undertones, and not like a woman who was wearing black bike shorts under her dress for extra camera genital insurance. He led me to the couch, and after I had chosen my mask, I mentally prepared to giggle on command. That was the purpose of this hour, to laugh. He didn't want to tickle my feet and try to make me laugh. He wanted the certainty of creating laughter. The purpose was the laughter itself, not the attempt. Larry began rubbing my feet lightly and then began tickling them while a foot dialogue developed. It appalled me that any dialogue could revolve around my size 10 feet. My flat soles, my scarred left foot, my hairy big toes that I sometimes shave before dates, my chipped red nail polish. That tickles, that really tickles. My feet are so ticklish. Over and over and over again, I laughed in between these declarations. After my third, that tickles, Larry began to respond with apologies that weren't absolute, of course, and were perhaps the purpose of such a fetish. Well, I'm sorry that tickles, that's too bad, he would say, and smile. I felt defeated knowing I would conclude an hour this way. Larry suggested that I lie on my stomach, which was actually preferable because of the absence of eye contact. I could lie there with my arms draped over the couch like a lazy bag of celery stalks. The tickling was a constant annoyance on the heels and on the tops of my feet, and then it became concentrated to the underside of my toe crevices. Imagine how you might tickle a dog's ears. Tentative at first, and then more certain, and then in response to their panting, or in this case, laughing, slightly more aggressive, and in varying locations centered around the ears until the spot was found. And that was where you fully dedicated yourself. 1 hour. 1 hour to delve into the archives of my mind's memories. 1 hour to regard any humorous event that I had experienced in my entire life and any that I could possibly twist that way. I first, of course, laughed because an architect with a foot fetish named Larry was tickling my feet. I laughed because I cried the last time I ate a banana. I laughed because my last boyfriend was a 26-year-old virgin and I knew I was going to marry him. I laughed because he sold his mattress and then he left me. I laughed because a lesbian named Rhonda with a motorcycle had recently given me a Brazilian bikini wax and it really hurt. I laughed because I was almost kidnapped in Thailand. I laughed because that was also the day Whitney Houston died. I laughed because the more we get to know each other, the less we end up knowing. I laughed because I had responded to an ad on Craigslist entitled, "It Pays to Be Tickled." I laughed because I had spent all of last year in fear that my brother's brain cancer would kill him. I laughed because my life was equal parts sensitive and careful and furious all at once. I laughed because time changed so much. I laughed because I had to. I knew that a considerable amount of time had been spent, perhaps 38 minutes. I was still lying on my stomach and suddenly felt a sensation unlike anything that had previously occurred. And then my left toes experienced it again. Was he biting my toes? I turned around to see my gray stockinged foot and pinky toe specifically in his mouth. Yes, I had committed to an hour of feet tickling, but biting was never discussed. I gave Larry a disapproving look and removed my foot from his mouth. I needed a break. He suggested I change my tights to a different color. I chose nude. The tights had a lengthy run down one side, and I could only imagine how they became frayed that way. I had a feeling this was not his first time biting feet. Larry let me know he was going to use some tickling props from inside a plastic shopping bag as I lied back on my stomach. I could only imagine what resided, tangled, and previously towed in the bottom of the bag, but I said yes anyways. I turned over on my side so I could ensure my toes wouldn't be treated like a chew toy again. I went through the entire process again, giggling first and then breaking into bundled bouts of laughter to sustain a cycle that should not be hastily completed because it had to be repeated. After a few minutes, he pulled out another prop, a child's electric toothbrush with Spider-Man on it. Larry turned it on and explored my toe crevices. Where did this toothbrush come from? Had he gone to Walgreens specifically for this purchase? I felt uneasy. I felt finished. I felt hungry. I told Larry that I had to leave. Do you want to tickle my feet instead, he asked. I did not. Do you want any cheese and crackers? I did. I wanted to eat anything, but I wanted to leave more. I had to meet my book club, I told him. Would I like cash or check? I told him a check, please, without thinking. It felt better, more professional, more sane, more like a business transaction to accept a check than a handful of cash that had been so many other places before. The past hour had been sad and risky and a little bit funny, and I had just done it. I had left that folding mystery of depression, that joyless cave that had lassoed me in, and I had laughed about it. I felt an odd sense of camaraderie with Larry and his bathroom filled with completed crossword puzzles, although I didn't want to admit it. He handed me a check for $100, and I noticed in the memo section it stated design consult. Larry had written his foot fetish off as a work expense. Thank you.